You're tuned into Inside Lowell. Inside Lowell podcast brought to you in part by Washington Savings Bank, serving the greater Lowell community for over 130 years. Make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank.
WellPoint. Unicare is now WellPoint. New name, same commitment to Massachusetts. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point.
Boston North Company, offering a wide variety of business solutions to help restaurant and retail clients save money. Boston North. Mahoney Oil Company, providing warmth and protection to families in Greater Lowell and Southern New Hampshire since 1925. That's Mahoney Oil. Francis E. Preventia Insurance. For auto, home, business, and life, trust the agency Greater Lowell has counted on for more than 40 years. Francis E. Preventia Insurance. GoPuff, a grocery store right at your fingertips. Use the code Lowell20 to receive $20 off your first order of $21, plus free delivery. Download the GoPuff app or visit gopuff.com today. And by the Massachusetts Pirates, bringing all the hard-hitting action and excitement of arena football to the Tsonga Center in Lowell. Get your tickets today by visiting masspiratesfootball.com. And now, time for another Inside Lowell podcast. Inside Lowell. If Lowell is your home, this is your place.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another Inside Lowell podcast. I am your host, Teddy Panos, coming to you from the WellPoint Studios here in downtown Lowell. Unicare is now WellPoint. New name, same commitment to you. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. We thank our friends at WellPoint and all of our sponsors for making this podcast, all of our Inside Lowell podcasts possible, and all of Inside Lowell possible as well. I also, while I'm in a thanking mood, I want to thank my special guest this morning. She is the state auditor for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Auditor Diana DiZoglio, joining us here in the WellPoint Studios. How are you?
Better now. Better now that I'm inside Lowell.
Yeah, you actually you appeared in my 30-second and 60-second commercial from your last visit, which
nice.
I can't believe it's been over a year now since you were last here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You have to get me in more often.
I keep pushing you. Come to Lowell and you don't even stop in and say hi to me anymore.
That is not true, folks. I actually do. I just stop into the Athenian corner. Ding, 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 ding.
You remember the
shameless plug.
You do get back to Lowell an awful lot. It's kind of, I know Methuen is your home, but Lowell in many ways is kind of your second home.
Lowell's
right?
a second home to me. I went to Middlesex Community College and graduated from there. Very grateful for that opportunity. Love Middlesex. Actually spoke recently there at their graduation. I also used to serve at Girls Inc. in downtown Lowell, and I worked at the United Teen Equality Center as their cultural arts coordinator years ago. So every time I get to be back in the city, it's a great day. So I'm so happy I'm here right now. Yeah,
and you're kind of a staple at all the UMass Lowell commencements and all the big things that they have going on as well.
We love UMass Lowell, and we're so grateful for their work in the community, the opportunities they provide to students. And yes, I do like to make sure I'm attending those graduations as much as possible when I'm invited, and get to celebrate with everybody regarding the work that they've done. And hopefully a lot of those students will stay local and work local, and we'll get to continue to see them.
That's what we're hoping for here. A lot has happened in the last 13 months since you've been here. You actually, when you came here, I think it was the first time you revealed past audits that your office, the auditor's office, had conducted of the Mass Legislature. You've since uncovered another 100 somewhat. And I'll do like the abridged version here for the audience, but the legislature continues to push back on your efforts to audit them. You had to go gather signatures to try to get a ballot question. You also went kind of through the legal process with the Attorney General's office, who ruled that you do not have the authority to audit the legislature. 2 weeks ago, you appeared for some hearings on this exact topic. Where are we as we sit here today, April 16th, 2024? Where are we in this process? And do you think you're going to ever get to do that audit that you promised during your campaign.
Well,
and you're pushing to do.
Yes, so we are doing the audit right now. So I think that's an important point. Legislative leaders are refusing to cooperate. So the audit is going to have scope limitations and point to where we could not get information that we wanted for the audit. But the audit is being conducted. The audit is going through a process right now in the final stages. We hope to get it out to folks sooner rather than later so folks can see what an audit of the legislature actually looks like. The folks in our office, they select topics based on those concerns raised to our office. They go in, they look at policies, processes, procedures, and finances. Unfortunately, again, the Senate President and the Speaker did refuse to cooperate, so it is lacking in information. During this process, we have attempted multiple times, various times, to get the legislature to operate in a spirit of cooperation. Since they haven't done so, we went to the Attorney General, sought her support. As you said, she came down with sort of this ruling rather than an opinion. We know that the Attorney General is able to have an opinion in this matter, and she chose to side with legislative leaders against an audit. But we didn't ask her for a ruling on this because she's not a judge and she's not the court system. And the judiciary actually is, according to our system in here in Massachusetts, they're the ones that are supposed to be making those calls about what is the interpretation of the law and what is not the interpretation of the law. So we actually asked for the Attorney General's assistance and for her to side with us in this disagreement with the legislature. She chose the side of the legislature, but is sought to put up roadblocks to our accessing the court system to be able to get a ruling. So we found that incredibly disappointing, obviously, but are pushing forward nonetheless, and we are doing so through a ballot question. I am doing that in my personal capacity. We have a few weeks more before we know whether the legislature has decided to adopt the provisions we got 75,000 signatures for already during the ballot signature collecting process that would expressly add the general court, that verbiage, to the language of the law so that it makes it crystal clear that they are part of all departments, as it already says in the law, because they seem to be confused about what all means and what the word departments means. So as the legislative department, we did have it expressly added into the law through this ballot proposal, and including the general court to make it crystal clear for any confusion. And if they don't include that themselves by the first week of May, it's going to come back to all of you for your support in getting another 12,000 plus signatures to get this on the November ballot. And I hope to have your support in collecting signatures. If you would like to help, please contact me. Go to my website, dianaforma.com, click on the ballot button, and you can get involved. Please don't contact my office about this. It's not an official issue, but it is something that we're working on, politically speaking, on the side of. So
you're not holding your breath that the legislature is going to give you the go-ahead. You fully expect that you're going to need to go get those 12,000 signatures, and then
if history repeats itself,
Massachusetts will have to make the decision in November. Okay. So you said you've already been working on the audit, however, and that you plan to release something, you hope to release something sooner rather than later. Mm-hmm. Will you release what you've already done before you've had a chance to get the full scope that you're shooting for?
Yes.
Okay. And then what will you do? Another new one, or kind of a follow-up, an addendum, if you are able to succeed at the ballot box?
Well, my commitment during the campaign, I campaigned for almost 2 years for this position, right? It was a long and hard-fought battle, so to speak. And during that time, we talked a lot about the need for increased transparency in the legislature and across the state government, but especially in our state legislature, where we're frequently ranked as one of the least transparent state legislatures in the entire nation, not subject to public records laws, open meeting laws, roll calls are not necessarily recorded. In fact, many times they are not. During committees, they're not required to be, recorded votes. So this is simply something that we talked about during the campaign, where we saw this as an opportunity to increase transparency in a body that sorely needs increased transparency and operates under a cloak of darkness, so to speak. Unfortunately, because of their lack of cooperation, again, this audit will be incredibly limited in scope, but we do feel like it's important to still finish the audit. That was my commitment, that we were going to conduct an audit. I am disappointed disappointed that they have refused to participate and give documents necessary for the full scope of the audit to actually, or for the full audit to be completed. But we are going to show folks what was in this current audit. And, after November, when this is voted into law by taxpayers and voters of Massachusetts, I know it will be, we are going to likely be looking to go back to get access to the information that previously was inaccessible. And then, of course, Teddy, we'll be listening to people in the interim for any other things that people have concerns about, as we do with every entity that we audit.
Do you anticipate them until the voters decide, or ultimately I think this is going to end up going to court, even if the voters side with you, which I agree with you, I think they will, but I can see a legal battle playing out eventually over this. But do you anticipate an effort to block whatever you've done already from being released to the public until?
Unfortunately, and I've been asking to go to court this entire time and said, let the courts decide, because we have a difference of opinion on the interpretation of Massachusetts general laws, right? We have a difference of opinion across the board on these matters. They say that they've never been audited before, that this is unprecedented, that our office is trying to usurp their authority. The list goes on with the ridiculous accusations from legislative leaders in an attempt to get out of having to be transparent and accountable to the people that they were sworn in to serve. So we are basically essentially now putting out there all of the precedent that we do have, those 117 audits that we found that were, mostly buried in the auditor's office. We digitize them. We put them up on our website for people to view, so you can look at all of the audits that used to be done of the state legislature, down to the last cigar purchased by the speaker's office back in the day. Used to keep tabs on even, how much was spent on cigars and all of those things. So we have precedent, and we do, look forward to passing this issue on the ballot. However, even though we've asked to go to court right now, and the Attorney General is seeking to block our access to the court system, and legislative leaders are refusing to participate, I am of the opinion that it is highly likely, due to some of the things that the Attorney General has said, that we can expect a challenge to the passage of this law once this is passed into law, that they are likely to seek to try to overturn the will of the people, try to throw up, a constitutional challenge, or, anything and everything that they can possibly to make it so that they don't have to participate.
Is this making it challenging for you? Because most of these people that you speak about that are trying to fight you, they're members of your own party. You've served with these people in both the House and the Senate. The Attorney General is somebody who you very friendly with. I think you spent a lot of time campaigning at same campaign events with her, et cetera. And now you've got a job to do. You also, there's a social component of your job as well. You have to appear at certain events. I'm seeing you out there at the St. Patrick's Day breakfast doing your singing thing and whatnot. Is it awkward? Has it put a strain on your relationship
Absolutely.
with some of these folks, and also your ability to do the rest of your job?
I would say the ability to do the rest of the job. I am so grateful that I have amazing staff, and the staffers, the auditors in our office, are very focused on the tasks at hand. They continue to operate efficiently and effectively to make sure we're getting our audits done in a timely fashion. But yeah, look, at these events, of course, yeah, it does put a strain. It's been challenging. The general public, by and large, is very excited from, my interactions with people when I'm out and about in the community. People are thrilled that we are pushing the envelope on this, that we're, fighting to change the status quo. We're pushing for bold and meaningful change. It's going to give folks increased access to what's happening with their tax dollars and, under the opaque golden dome, so to speak. But yes, I do, when I go to a lot of these different events, many times people have said they feel like they're put in an awkward position. They don't want to take a photo with me because they're scared that the Senate president is going to see it and they're going to get an earful, or that, some people will just, make a joke, but it's kind of not really a joke. There's a hint of truth to it too. Well, they'll be like, "Oh, I don't want my budget to get cut. I can't be seen with you," and you kind of think that they're joking, but then they do really run away from the photo. I've had legislators say, that they're up for a chairmanship potentially, and they don't want to ruin their chances by being associated with me. But it's interesting, Teddy, because I do have what I consider to be really good relationships with a lot of legislators, a lot of staff, where I did work in the legislature for 10 plus years. I was a legislative aide, and then I served in an elected capacity as state rep for 6 years, state senator for 4, and I have very good relationships with a lot of legislators. But I think it's challenging because a lot of those folks that I have good relationships with, they're operating in a culture of retaliation at the State House, where they might very well agree with what we're trying to do, be fans of what we're trying to do, consider themselves to be friends with me and the office. But then when push comes to shove, they have to navigate ensuring that their district isn't going to get cut off from funding to their schools, their roads and bridges, their public safety departments, their libraries, their senior centers. And they know that because of the retaliation that occurs up on Beacon Hill, if they misstep at all, that they could face retaliation and not just get their office stripped of them, not just get their chairmanship stripped of them, but actually have their district retaliated against and have somebody say, well, you're not getting funding for this addiction resource center that you're trying to get funding for because you apparently, want me to be audited. These are some of the things that I am hearing about from legislators, from their staff, and from other folks who do rely on legislative leaders for their budget. And it's unfortunate that we do have that system of, retaliation and fear occurring up at the State House. But I don't think that that's really surprising to a lot of people who have paid attention through the years. And look, we're seeking to open up the legislative processes, regarding their finances, processes, and procedures through this audit for legislators, for their staff, and for the general public to have access to what's going on, shine a light in the dark places, to help make government work better. I say this time and time again, this is not an FBI investigation. We do not go in and toss desks. This is not that type of inquiry. This is an audit. And to have people at the helm on Beacon Hill kicking and screaming, so to speak, about an audit is deeply, deeply concerning to me and to a lot of folks across the board who wonder, what are you hiding? If there's nothing to hide, wouldn't you just welcome an audit? Because certainly, Teddy, we do many times find issues and challenges in agencies, entities, and departments, but those entities, generally speaking, work back with us to address the challenges. They thank us for, our recommendations, and then they work to implement them because they understand that even though an audit can be frustrating to have to go through, that it's necessary for accountability. I am going to give a high five over to UMass Lowell, who we haven't released their audit yet, so I can't discuss the full findings. That's coming out soon. But we went into UMass Lowell. We did an audit of some of the finances and some processes over there. We found some issues, but we highlighted them to the leadership, and they were very responsive, cooperative, expressed that they wanted to work in a spirit of cooperation, and they were at the ready to address these concerns and already implementing some of the recommendations our team made to make sure that there was more accountability going forward. That's what these audits are there for. It's to help these entities to do a better job and serve taxpayers better. It's not there to shame them or to make them look bad. It's there to identify some gaps in the system to help. So I'm always grateful when different areas of government, different agencies, departments, offices work in that spirit of cooperation. And I find it deeply disturbing that our own legislative leaders here, who think that others should receive audits, they themselves think that their entity is above the law and that they don't have to be fully accountable to the people of Massachusetts.
We're chatting with State Auditor Diana DiZoglio. She's joining us here in the WellPoint studios. So this legislative audit is kind of the issue that's defined your first year and some change in the office. It may be the one that defines your entire tenure as auditor, because it does seem like it's going to be dragged out a little bit longer. But it's not all you're working on.
Correct.
How many other audits is your office currently working on today?
So we have, I believe, over 64 currently that we are working on, and that is of agencies and entities across the board in Massachusetts. And I could talk just about a few recent audits that I think, folks would like to hear about. We did an audit of the Mass Health program. Did we talk about this recently? I don't think that we did. No, because this was over a year that I was here. Yeah. So we conducted an audit of our Mass Health system here in Massachusetts and found that an estimated nearly $85 million of tax dollars went out on behalf of out-of-state residents who are actually already receiving health care in other states. So those residents had done the right thing. When they moved, they registered in that state's Medicaid program or whatever form of health care they were receiving. But the state of Massachusetts did not make that administrative change to document that they had actually left the state, to make sure that payments stopped going to managed care organizations on their behalf. So we paid out an estimated nearly $85 million to managed care organizations on behalf of people who were documented at the federal level to be receiving health care in other states. That is completely unacceptable. And that is something that our office highlighted to this administration. We highlighted it to Mass Health. Mass Health did not respond in a spirit of cooperation to our office's findings like we had hoped that they would. Well, they did recognize the authority of our office to conduct the audit. When our audit actually came out, they refuted the findings, said they thought that the numbers were inflated essentially. And we essentially went back to them and said, fine, you're entitled to your opinion. We put the way that the audit was conducted all out there for the general public to judge. We worked with the Government Accountability Office's processes on ensuring that GAGAS was implemented and did everything right by those standards. But I would say that, whether it's an estimated nearly $85 million or whether it's an estimated $850, those are taxpayer dollars. If you know that you are losing money on behalf of taxpayers to a system that is not working, it is incumbent upon your organization to work to address those challenges. So we have continued to call on Mass Health to address the challenges. Still, those issues have not been addressed to my understanding. We are grateful that our office has been working with the new Secretary of HHS to address some of these challenges, and we're hopeful, but Mass Health does need to come up with some way to address these challenges. We made a set of recommendations to them, and we look forward to finding out whether or not they actually did implement our recommended changes or did their own set of changes. But we need to make sure they're addressing this. We cannot lose an estimated $85 million due to administrative changes that didn't occur.
We've seen an awful lot of abuse of COVID money during the time, unemployment especially. But now that we've got all this ARPA money that's come in and it's got to be spent in a certain way and by a certain time, does your office have any investigative powers over that to make sure it's being properly spent, or does that come from the federal level?
So any money that came in through the state and was dispersed through the state, because some of the federal money went directly to organizations or directly to the cities and towns. And if it came directly from the feds and went out, we don't have oversight authority over federal money, just like we don't have oversight authority over any city money unless the city invites us in. The Inspector General does have authority to go into a city and town and investigate that city and town. That is under his purview. The Office of State Auditor is able to investigate state-funded entities, and that is with, yes, respect to ARPA funds as well, as long as they went through the state coffers first. So we are doing that currently and implementing that into the audit work that we're doing. I did just start that recently in the last, like I said, I'm just coming out of my first year in office. Or I said that in the last interview, actually, that I did right before I came over to you. But for folks who are listening, I am coming out of just my first year in office during the time during which I started to implement my 17-point audit plan to make sure that we are addressing some of the issues related to ARPA. And we do have an appointee, Renee Harper, who is on the audit equity panel, and she is responsible for, alongside of that entire panel, for providing some oversight to the distribution of those funds.
So when you talk about an audit, well, let's pick one. Let's just pick the UMass Lowell one. No specifics, but how long does it take from the moment you decide you're going to begin that audit to the completion? And what are we talking about in terms of staff resources and money? How much does each audit cost?
Well, when an auditee, like UMass Lowell, for example, cooperates, as they did, thank you, UMass Lowell. We appreciate you operating in a spirit of cooperation. You are to be commended for your participation, and we're very grateful. I would say that things can move along a lot more quickly because these auditees are getting documentation back to our staff in a timely fashion. They are meeting with our staff in a timely fashion. They are answering questions fully, and we are able to do our jobs more efficiently and effectively on behalf of taxpayers. So those audits, generally speaking, go a lot more quickly. Obviously, if there are more audit topics to cover, based on what the audit team decided to look at based on the recommendations given to us from taxpayers, it can take a little bit longer based on that. But generally speaking, when an auditee operates in a spirit of cooperation, things can go more quickly. Then there are times when folks will drag their heels in these different entities. They will not be available, can't do the meetings, will not be as cooperative in getting us documents in a timely fashion, will make excuses as to why they can't get us documents or why they can't meet with us in a timely fashion or why we have to meet with somebody else before we meet with somebody else. So those audits can take a little bit longer. We do try to give some flexibility to different agencies and departments, understanding that they do have jobs to do during the day and they have their regular daily responsibilities to handle, and that having an auditor come in to their office who's, requesting documents and interviews, that's additional work, right? That's put onto their plate. Nonetheless, we are required by Massachusetts general law to complete these audits in a 3-year time frame. It's not a lot of time to audit over 200 entities, Teddy. So we are reviewing the process. I have had the last, a little bit over a year, like I said, to learn about the inner workings of the office and to identify some of the areas where we can be more, do things more expeditiously, so to speak, in terms of setting deadlines for things, setting deadlines for agencies, making sure that they're aware that even though we want to give them a little bit more time to complete some of the, requests that we have, that we do have to follow the law and get these audits done in a timely fashion. So we need them to speed up their processes in order to help us to get things done on time for you. So, hopefully we'll start to see a shorter turnaround time in that regard. But, it depends on the agency. It depends on their cooperation or lack thereof. And it depends on the scope of the audit.
All right. I know you've got to run on one more topic I want to hit with you. And that is the fact that we're spending, I'm going to round it up to $1 billion. It was 890 something, but chances are it's going to climb anyway, of state tax dollars are being spent on the migrant situation, the emergency shelters, transitional living, housing, all this stuff. It's interesting to me that they're talking about cutting money from other spending priorities that were had. Do you have any say in that, or do you have any investigative power, I should say, in that? Because I'm wondering, like, some of these monies, I assume, were specifically targeted and raised for, be it education or for other housing for people who are not part of the emergency shelter system and whatnot. Who's overseeing that, and is your office the office that's doing that?
So the reason why we know about how much money is going towards this is because that is public information. People can see how much is being spent on these things. Where our office can come in and be helpful is where there are questions about the use of the funds that we know are going towards this. And shine a light on, whether or not the funds are being used appropriately, the way they're said to be being used. So we would have authority to go in and to audit any issues or challenges that might be presented to our office. In that regard, we do not have authority to dictate how funds are spent, whether or not they are spent in a certain way, and to change anything about how, different monies that are taxpayer monies are being utilized. And that's in this case, and that's across the board in the budget. Our office has the ability to provide oversight authority in terms of reporting back to the taxpayers about any issues or challenges in the spending of taxpayer dollars, but we're not able to dictate and enforce a change in how things are being done. We can only highlight things. I will say we are looking at this particular issue because we did have some concerns raised to us. So we are reviewing some of the funds that are being spent on the emergency shelter system, alongside of conducting a review of housing across the board in Massachusetts, which we know we're in a housing crisis. We have a lot of challenges across the board, and we are also looking at housing authorities as well alongside of this issue. So yes, we do have some oversight authority as it pertains to this matter to shine a light on this, report it back to you, but then it is up to legislators and this administration to utilize that information to make sure that the system is accountable to you, the taxpayer.
And so that's kind of where I was going, because we have this right to shelter law that's been in place for 30, 40 years now. My understanding is there are people who have been in the state for 30, 40 years or have been here prior to the migrant crisis who are now getting shut out. All of the housing and all of the emergency shelter space is being given to the migrants. And I'm just kind of curious. There's a law that says, well, you got to take care of all these folks. So when you run out of space, is there an equitable way to decide like who's getting these, who's getting the housing, who's getting the roof over the head, the hotel room, whatever it may be? Because I'm told it's a real battle out there, and some of the caseworkers are quite frankly frustrated that people they've known for years are now they're having to reject them because of the emergency situation.
I think that legislators and this administration absolutely have some work to do on this front and making sure to address the many challenges that are being raised to them right now concerning budgetary constraints. As folks know, the budget, we've been running at a deficit and operating where we've seen a lot of cuts made across the board to different important programs in people's districts and people's communities. A lot of our local legislators get earmarks, for example, that they're able to bring back to their communities. But simultaneously, they see funds going to different areas of state government where there, have been causes for concern raised to legislators and this administration. So they, with their responsibilities under law, do have the responsibility to review, analyze these things, and then make informed decisions with respect to what their opinions are on this. The authority of my office is to review and analyze how, under current law, monies are being spent and whether or not they're being spent appropriately in accordance with regulations and the statute.
Is part of what you're looking at, or will be looking at, how many of the folks who are on the wait lists and don't have a roof over their head right now, folks who have been in the state forever, and how many are migrants? And I know there's some logistical words that are being played here. The governor and some of the folks are terming everybody as a Massachusetts resident. Well, yes, if you came in as a migrant 2 years ago and have been in a hotel in Bedford or Billerica and then relocated somewhere else, they're calling you a Massachusetts resident. But I'm talking about people who have been actual legal residents of the state for a decade or a long period of time versus those who have come into the migrant shelter system. So
I would actually love to be able to talk to you about this, but I'm not able to under the Government Accountability Office's standards. I will tell you,
that's one of the things you're looking at.
It's taken a lot of patience, growth in patience on my part, I should say. Where I was a senator, I would get to just the second that I had a thought about something, talk about it, but I'm actually not allowed to, under government auditing standards, point to extreme specifics about exact audit topics so as to not compromise the integrity of the audits or reviews in our office. So I want to abide by that for now, but I will say that everything is a matter of public record in my office once those audits and reviews are completed. So once those are completed, I am more than happy to come back on here, Teddy, and to talk to you about it in the spirit of transparency to make sure that you do have full access to the findings and what our office was able to review and what we were able to find and what the path forward may be. But we're happy to have that conversation in due time once those reviews are completed so that we do follow the standards set down to our office.
Alrighty.
That I've been learning all about the last year.
Awesome.
It's exciting times.
Always good to have you in the WellPoint Studio, State Auditor Diana DiZoglio. And I'll leave you with this. A military buddy of mine said to me, the return fire is always most fierce when you're hovering over the target. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Great to be in Lowell, everybody.
Great to have you here. Thank you for joining us as well here on the latest Inside Lowell podcast. As we like to say, Inside Lowell. If Lowell is your home, this is your place. Till next time, be safe, everybody.